Amid the rising demand for the new naira notes, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has dismissed speculations over the inadequacy of the new notes in the deposit money banks, saying the banks have enough new notes to circulate across the nation, ahead of the January 31st deadline when old notes will cease to be a legal tender. The CBN has also clarified that it did not ban the banks from paying customers the new notes over the counter, pointing out that the directive to the banks is to dispense new notes via automated teller machines to complement over-the-counter transactions and increase the circulation of the redesigned notes. The Apex Bank had directed the banks to load their ATMs with only new notes to ensure that the currency circulates across the country ahead of the January 31st deadline. Even with the directive from the CBN, the new naira notes are still to be adequately circulated, as citizens have complained about its scarcity. Joining us on this show this morning, right now, to discuss the inadequacy of the new naira notes in circulation is Muda Yusuf, a Nigerian economist and director, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPP. Welcome to the morning show, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Good morning.
Okay, good. Good to see you in the new year. But you're listening to the various issues raised in that introduction. Many Nigerians are complaining that those new notes are not available. And even with the directive that the banks should dispense the new notes through the ATM to complement over-the-counter transactions, there isn't enough in supply. Contrary to the promise by the CBN spokesperson, Inadequacy, who says, no, there is adequate supply. Well, some people say they only get these new notes when they go to event centers on weekends, at Owambe events, or they probably see them with more privileged members of the community. So what do you think the CBN should do to address this? Beyond the enlightenment program that they say they will be starting tomorrow to enlighten people, particularly market women, across the country.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the CBN should be a lot more sensitive to developments in the environment. Obviously, from what we can see, and I mean, the evidence abound everywhere, we are dealing with a situation of a serious capacity problem on the part of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Capacity in terms of the production of the new notes and capacity with respect to logistics. Obviously, the CBN has grossly underestimated what it takes to make this currency available across the country. If we are getting this kind of feedback and stories from cities like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Kano, what are we going to say about those who are in more remote places or other states outside of these major cities? As I speak to you, I have not seen the new currency notes beyond what I see on the screen and things like that. And yet we have practically just about 3 weeks to deadline. This is clearly unrealistic. And I wonder sometimes the CBN behaves as if they are in a different planet from where we are. This is obviously unrealistic. The deadline is unrealistic. And the Senate, I mean, if only out of courtesy and respect, the Senate has advised that the deadline should be shifted. Because quite frankly, I don't understand what the rush is all about. I don't know what they want to achieve. Even the very concept of redesigning and all of this, I struggle with the value proposition. What exactly do they want to achieve? I mean, if you take examples of other clients where they have had issues of transition from, currency, one currency to the other, sometimes they give as long as 3 years. The most recent example is what is happening in the UK. There's a change from the paper notes to the polymer notes of 20 pounds and 50 pounds. This process commenced in February 2020, and it just ended in September 2022. That's over 2 years. That's even for a country that has all the logistics, the technology, and everything. They give 2 years. Take the example of the United States. As we speak, all designs of currency notes of a US dollar, right from the one that was printed in 1963, all their currency notes are still legal tender up to today. You can check it on the Federal Reserve website. They don't stampede their citizens as if we have not had enough trouble in this economy. I think the CBN has been unfair to citizens with this. And now they are saying that even for above the counter and all of that, now all sorts of contradictory circulars and statements, but are even confusing the citizens. I don't think we deserve this. This is an economy where we have over 30 million adults that are unbanked. All these their policies have not even made accommodation for them. They are citizens of this country. We have to factor their interest into whatever we are doing.
All right, Dr. Yusuf.
Now they are saying people should go to ATM and all of that. If you don't have an account, how can you go to ATM? And in any case, how many ATMs do we have around the country? Across all locations in the country, how many communities have ATMs? There are people in rural areas, in rural, very, very remote locations.
All right,
they are all Nigerians.
All right, Dr. Yusuf, thank you.
So I think the CBN should be more sensitive. They should be more responsive.
All right.
This country belongs to all of us.
Indeed. Dr. Yusuf, you haven't hidden your position or view with regards to the redesigning of the naira notes. Indeed, you kicked against it right from the announcement, and you've granted a number of interviews or where you've appeared, you talked about it. However, at least as at today, the CBN is not shifting grounds. They're saying that come 31st of January, it is sacrosanct. They're going to phase out the old notes and bring in the new notes. What better way can the CBN manage? So one of the things they're doing now is to manage the situation. Is that they're saying that they're giving a new directive as to it being collected, being dispensed to the ATMs. They're talking about working with the National Orientation Agency to raise, sensitize market women and people in the community in Nigeria as to the new notes. What would be your recommendation to make this work? Because they've cited some reasons why they have to do this or why they'd had to do this. What would be your recommendation to them?
Well, first of all, you cannot give what you don't have. It is very clear to everybody that the CBN doesn't have the capacity to meet this deadline. And must it be at all costs? I've just cited the example of other economies where they use 1 year, 2 years to transition from one note to the other. Now, what magic do they want to perform? I think the thing is that they should just come to the reality that is on the ground. And just as I said, Nigerians have suffered enough. If the CBN cannot be part of the solution to the problems that we are going through, they should not be part of the problem. I mean, what magic do they want to perform? We just have 3 weeks. This is a very vast country with a population of over 200 million people, with people in very remote locations around the country. I mean, the CBN is there to serve the people. It's not for the people to serve them. And if people are saying that this is not realistic, I mean, why must they insist on this deadline? This is not a military regime. The Senate has spoken. The House of Reps have spoken. These are representatives of the people. So I don't understand where this, I don't want to call it arrogance or whatever. I don't understand where this is coming from. What exactly do they want to achieve? All this redesigning and all of it has no policy, monetary policy significance at all. People have said it will bring down inflation, it will strengthen the naira. There is no basis for all of that, both empirically and theoretically. So the CBN should not inflict unnecessary pain on Nigerians. We have enough problems already. People are grappling with high cost of goods and services. We are grappling with problem of poverty. We are grappling with problems in the exchange rate and all of that. And yet you now throw this into the works to achieve what? Of course we are in it, but at least we should make it a lot more seamless.
Okay.
They need to shift ground. This deadline needs to be shifted. I've heard argument that maybe this is about politicians who want to buy votes and all of that. Should that be the main responsibility of the Central Bank of Nigeria? And must it be at this cost to the citizens? I mean, if you have people, they don't have, they are all sorts of remote locations. They bring their money to the bank. They cannot exchange it. How do we want them to run their business? This economy is almost 50% informal. The agricultural sector is basically a rural activity. The rural economy is big. A lot of transactions are taking place in terms of business. Do you know how much a truckload of either yam, potato, tomato, you do know how much it costs a truckload of it? And many of these people operate, they use cash.
Okay, sir. I'd like to ask you
So we have to be a bit more inclusive in our policy approach.
Okay, sir. I'd like to ask you, good to see you again, sir. Happy New Year. Is there any way the CBN has violated the CBN Act in this policy? I'd just like to ask you that frontally. Is there any place that what the CBN is doing now is at variance with the CBN Act? Is there anywhere? Can you tell me?
Well, I don't think there is, I'm not a lawyer, I don't think there is any, apart from the issues of the scandalous ways and means, which, I mean, is in the public domain, where the CBN has flagrantly violated the CBN Act. Apart from that, in terms of this particular situation, the CBN has the legal authority to change currency note and all of that. But there's a fundamental human rights issue here. And fundamental human right is a constitutional issue. The CBN Act cannot be more superior to the Constitution. If I'm a Nigerian and I have my cash, you can't compel me to open an account. If I bring my cash, you say you want to take the legal, you have to take it and give me the new notes. Now you are not doing that.
But the new notes are being given.
And many citizens are now on the verge. Where are they?
The new notes are
How many people are they covered?
The new notes are being given, and the CBN expressed...
Given to how many people?
Through ATM, there have been ATM cards that some normal citizens went and they withdraw the new note. And secondly, the CBN, in its analysis before this time, said that it's to control the circulation of currency. So they will not print at a big amount. And that's why they gave people the alternative to use various forms of online digital banking to be able to stop naira in the circulation, reduce naira in the circulation, to boost the cashless policy. Those are the arguments they made. And that's why I said, have they violated any laws? You said no, according to the CBN Act. So,
you see, there is law and there is what you call maybe the reality of what is on the ground. Something may be legally right, but in terms of practice, morality and all of that, it may not be right. Now you say there's too much cash in the economy. Where is the data to show that? If you look at the data, cash dominance is measured by cash to GDP ratio. That is where you measure cash dominance in an economy. Cash to GDP ratio in Nigeria is one of the lowest in the world. We have a GDP of over 200 trillion. This cash you are talking about is just 3 trillion. Just about 1.5%. How much more cashless can you be? In the United States, cash to GDP ratio is about 10%. In UK, it's about 3%. In Nigeria, it's 1.5%. You need cash to service an economy. The cash we have is not too much for this economy. People should go and look at the data. An important policy should be data-driven. They should be evidence-based. Total money supply in this economy is 51 trillion. Cash component of money is just 3 trillion. Cash outside the bank is 2.8 trillion. Just about 5% of that. So is that too much?
Okay.
You could look at the data for other economies. So all this argument cannot stand in the face of even theory and empirical evidence.
Okay. Dr.
So I don't know where all of this is coming from.
Dr. Yusuf, will it be any consolation?
I can hear you, Doc.
Yes. Will it be any consolation if we rely on the promise by the CBN governor that yes, the CBN has a listening ear and will take on board some of the concerns of Nigerians? And you mentioned vote buying. What if all of this is just to prevent vote buying, and after March, the CBN can then go back and say, well, we've put more money into supply, and we can extend it at this point. Is that a possibility? And then apart from that, I would like you to comment on the budget 2023. We have the Appropriation Act. We don't have the Finance Act, which is supposed to spell out, the revenue projections of government in more concrete terms.
If this is about vote buying, and I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility, it is not the business of the CBN to subject Nigerians to this kind of disruption just because you want to tackle the issue of vote buying. These are issues for security agencies to deal with. You have ICPC, you have EFCC, you have DSS, you have INEC itself. Why will you abandon your core responsibility and be chasing the issue of vote buying? If that is where they are coming from. It's completely out of place. And in any case, the CBN governor himself was an aspirant sometimes back. Is that not even creating a credibility problem for both the CBN governor and the CBN itself in this matter? I mean, this can only happen in a country like this. So I don't think the issue of what needs to be done has to be done. You govern for people. You make laws for people. You don't make people for laws. You make regulations for people. You don't make people for regulations. So the interest of the people should be uppermost, should be sovereign, should be supreme in this matter. Right. And if the people are saying that this is not feasible, and there is nowhere, anywhere around the world where you are doing this transition and you have this kind of stampede of your citizens. On the finance bill, well, luckily the president didn't sign it because we had an unusual situation with the finance bill. There was normally supposed to be a public hearing. The Senate gave only 24 hours for public hearing to take place. What kind of democracy is that? There was a public announcement on the 21st. The public hearing was supposed to be on the 22nd. And before we knew what was happening, the bill had been passed to the president for assent. The House of Representatives scheduled a public hearing for 13th of January. We didn't know what happened. Even before the date, they had passed the bill to the president for assent. That is not, that doesn't speak well of our democracy. And this is a bill that contains far-reaching legislations, amending a lot of legislation that impacts on the investment environment, which require a lot of input, a lot of consultation, both with the stakeholders and even some key agencies of government. But luckily, the president had the listening ear. He assented to the Appropriation Act and supplement, but he didn't assent to the finance bill. So that has gone back now for further consultation. So our hope is that the National Assembly will now allow for proper public hearing, because the bill is coming with all sorts of issues. The bill is reviewing, increasing the tertiary education tax from 2.5% to 3%, and it was only reviewed at the last finance bill or finance act. Just 1 year ago, the tax was moved from 2% to 2.5%. Now they are talking about moving it to 3%. Then you have this proposal to impose excise duty on all services. I mean, how is that done? How can you impose excise duty on all services? That is not right. And we are talking about businesses that are already paying company tax. They are paying all sorts of levies. They are paying all sorts of fees. They are paying VAT, withholding tax, import duty, education tax, tax to police trust fund, national tax, need that tax, in addition to fees that they pay to regulatory agencies. You cannot kill investors in the name of raising revenue. That is not the way to grow an economy. How many people are in the tax base? How many people are in the tax net? So these are very fundamental issues. And that is why I feel that the process of the finance bill has to be a lot more inclusive, which is what the president has suggested. And I'm hoping that before the bill is returned back to the president for assent, at least the various shades of opinion will have been, incorporated. And that will shape the quality of the bill. But the way the bill was initially passed, it was rushed. They were so hasty. I don't know what informed that.
Well,
if you must meet a January to December deadline, must it be at all cost?
On that note,
but just as I said, we must commend the president for not assenting to the bill and for ensuring that this thing is taken back to make the process a lot more inclusive.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Muda Yusuf, for joining us on the morning show today.